Hello, I'm Todd Phillips, the editor of Canadian Auto Dealer. We're here today with Todd Bourgon, Executive Director of the MVRO. Todd, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Todd. Thank you for having me. Great to see you.
Yeah, I just saw you very recently in KDEX, and we talked about this topic that's really brewing. It's on the mind of a lot of dealers in Ontario, and there's some urgency really to this conversation because there's a time frame attached to it. We'll get to that in a second. But in a nutshell, the Ontario government is consulting with the industry about proposed changes to the Motor Vehicle Dealers Act, and the changes that the legislation hasn't been updated in many years, so it's time for a change. But some of the proposals are good idea. The MVRO would be in favor of. Others are just flat out a bad idea. So let's zone in, if you will, to start on this 48-hour cooling off period that's part of the proposal. Why is that such a bad idea? And maybe explain a little bit about the details behind that for us.
Sure. So there's multiple reasons on why it's a bad idea, and we'll get to that. I mean, basically, what is on the table is for the government to consider when they alter legislation for the rewrite of the MVDA that would include a 2-day cooling off period on the purchase of a new vehicle. And what that would mean is that a consumer would come into your store, they would cut a deal with you, and then they would have 2 days then to consider if they want to follow through on that deal. Anyone that's been in the industry a long time, we could probably spend 2 hours, which we won't today, on identifying the multiple factors that would have that turning into something of more than a disaster, from the financing aspect of it to adding any of the extras that a consumer wants on the car. Like, none of that stuff would either take place, or if the deal got canceled, would be extremely problematic. And so there's things that, those small examples. Other examples that are probably more obvious is that, let's say you're a manufacturer that has 0% financing. They come in the last day of the month, they cut the deal, they come back 2 days later. I'll take the vehicle, and that promotion's expired from the OEM. Then what? Who's on the hook at that point? It's going to create a distrust between the consumers and the dealership. And quite honestly, the other people that are going to be on the hook for this will be the salesperson. A month in, they think they sold 10 cars, and they find out 2 days later they only sold five. So, like I say, there's multiple reasons. Anyone that's watching this is from industry, whether you're an OEM, whether you're a retailer, you're a supplier on the F&I side, you're a captive, you're a bank. All of this will affect your industry, our industry, in a really poor way.
Yeah, you've hit on a ton of topics, and a couple of others that come to mind are things like, stair-step programs or incentive programs where a dealer or it may have hit a certain sales number, and then maybe they haven't. You have to unring a bunch of bells if you're going to have to really undo a lot of stuff. So it probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But I guess, as governments consult, they propose things that make sense on the surface, but they reach out to people in the industry who are in the know and have a better sense of the impact of all that. And that includes dealers, obviously. So part of this, the MVRO, I know you're really trying to encourage your members to reach out, and I think the deadline is the end of this month, May 31st. So what is it that you want them to do just to help raise to let the government know maybe this isn't such a great idea?
Right. So just for point of clarification, it's actually the 21st of this month. So it's coming
Okay.
up much sooner than that. And simply what we want people to do is not think that by being quiet that we'll get the result that we need. We need industry to be noisy on this. Whether you are on the OEM side, whether you're on the retail side, or whether you're on the supplier side, like I spoke of earlier, this will affect everybody. And it will not be good for our industry. And the only reason why government would consider putting something like this in when the auditors general has suggested it's a good idea is when they don't hear that it's a bad idea. And so by coming to industry, if industry doesn't get vocal with them and they go quiet, then the government says, okay, that's not a bad thing for them then, because they haven't said anything to us about it. Other thing too is that the MVDA does not get revised every year. It's been over 20 years since the last time this was revised. Things like social media, the reality of where they research cars on the internet, all those types of things have changed dramatically since that MVDA was put into play some 22 plus years ago. So my concern is that if we don't get everybody taking this very seriously and speaking out against this, then if we ended up saddled with this, we're stuck with this for a long time. We're not stuck with this for 3 or 4 years, and then we get a whole bunch of high price lobbyists to help fix this. That won't be the case because they simply don't look at these things on an annualized basis. And so that example that I give now is an important one. So what we want people to do is take what we've sent them out, over the last week and repurpose that email. It's a template that goes to their MPP, it goes to the ministry in charge of this, and it goes to the Premier of Ontario, and just have your voice heard. It takes literally a minute. I've had some dealers tell me that they had their sales meeting on Monday morning, or even some of them had it last Friday, and they instructed all their salespeople to do this. Anyone that has a license or is involved in the transaction with a customer should be sending this in. So the more noise we can make, the better chance we have that they'll realize that, that is a suggestion from the Auditor General, but it's not good for industry.
Well, one thing you mentioned, sort of the feedback already from dealers. I know that the MVRO sent out a video bulletin with this template that dealers can repurpose to send off. And what's been the reaction so far to that message that went out? Were dealers largely aware of this, unaware of these proposed changes? Where does it sit? What kind of feedback did you get when you kind of rang the alarm bell to a certain extent to the industry?
Well, I mean, I guess good in one respect is that no, people don't know about these things. It's really, it's our job when they come to industry for a consultation to identify that to our members. It usually doesn't go out to individual dealerships. But certainly, there's a lot of concern from those that have read this, and that's the feedback we've gotten. And you and I named off maybe 5 or 6 examples of how this could affect. I mean, we've got a list of over 45 in our submission as to how this could affect negatively. So far we've seen good reaction. People that are kind of scratching their heads going, what? We just put in-house licensing, digital licensing in our dealership like less than a year ago, and now they want to extend the sales transaction by 2 days. This goes against the grain of cutting red tape and moving market ahead. So I think what I would say is that a good reaction is okay. We need an awesome reaction. So we need, everybody to look at this as, I'm just going to let my neighbors send that in because they'll do it, is that everyone needs to do this. Then we can't look back, regardless of what the outcome is that we didn't put our best effort forward. And the other thing that concerns me, Todd, is that, you can look at the transactional part about all this, but there's an element of this that really worries me, is that for years we've been trying to change a legacy perception of our industry at the retail level. And I think we've done a really good job on many fronts. And that's building trust with a customer. What does it say to a customer when they walk in your store, they come to sign the papers, and you drop in front of them saying, you now have 48 hours to decide if you want to follow through on this, or you sign this document that says you're waiving that. I don't know how you are, but if someone says that to me, I start to question, maybe I've missed something here. What's going on in the background that I'm not aware of? Why has this been put into play? This was never here before. So that distrust is something on both sides, both the dealer distrusting the consumer. If they don't come through with the dealer, they choose the 48 hours, and also the consumer distrusting the dealership on why. And then when you add in the element, let's say that deal expires by the time they come back, that whole trust thing is basically, it's all shot to hell, quite frankly.
Yeah, those are all good points, and I'm sure it's a pretty robust submission, but from the MVRO sort of detailing all those points. But for the individual dealer, you're expecting them really just to craft a note to say, based on their experience, this is just a bad idea. They don't support it. Something along those lines. What is it more specifically?
Todd, we made it so easy. We've sent out, it's a template. You basically put in your name, you identify your postal code, it then goes to your MPP. It is so easy. Dealers have told us it takes less than a minute to do this. So if anybody has not received this for any reason whatsoever that's getting this, then just email us. You can go to our MVRO.ca website and send us an email through our info, or you send it to Frank Note at frankn@mvro.ca. But we can definitely point people in the right direction. That's not difficult on this one.
Okay. Now that's sort of, if you will, the negative part of the changes that requires that urgent action. And again, the deadline is May 21st, not May 31st. So let's get that straight. But there's some other things that the MVRO has been advocating for many years, and in ongoing consultation conversations, you've seen some of that end up in this proposed act. What are some of the good things that you've seen that you've managed to influence in one way or another to make sure that it's good for dealers?
Yeah, so a few things is, one of them certainly would be is that the ability to transact off-site. And there's a lot more detail to it, so please don't, and anyone jump to the conclusion, well, geez, now we're going to become curbsiders. No. It's just the model, from when people, buy through on their online businesses that a lot of our dealerships have now, and they want to deliver the car. It could be a customer who dealt with, 10 transactions, and that's customer just wants the car delivered and they do the paperwork there. We want the option for that to happen because people through the pandemic created those business models and they're still using it. So that's one thing that we like that's in there. We like the fact that you've got more time, up to 30 days now, to submit warranty paperwork. And the other piece was the incident claim from $3,000 to $5,000 being increased as a notable. So those are the things that we would say, they're positive. There's lots more things in there that are, minor altercations that are positive, but really our goal is that we're in favor of the MVDA being revisited. We've been pushing and lobbying for it for probably 15 years. But obviously we need it to reflect, the spirit of how to transact in our industry and to do it efficiently. Ontario dealers are already governed by, a 68-page Motor Vehicle Dealer Act. We're probably the most regulated industry that exists there today. There's over 30 pages in some cases, depending on the deal structure itself. But let's use that as a round number that consumers have put in front of them when they buy a car. And so in our world, there's enough disclosure in this. There's enough option for consumers to be well educated. They spend well over 15 hours online researching, what they're about to purchase or considering purchase. Nobody's walking out of their front door in the morning, on a whim going, I'm going to go buy $100,000 car just for the hell of it. So like I say, the positive things in there, we think outweigh the one negative, but the one negative is the thing we need people to take most action on.
Okay, well, appreciate that. We'll get this video out to our readers, our viewers, and hopefully they'll act on that and help let government know it's not a good fit for the auto retail industry. So for a whole bunch of reasons. Appreciate your time sharing this with us today.
Thanks for having me, Todd.